John Adams, presented by Jordan Walker and Takira Adams. Next slide. John Adams was born on October 30th, 1735, in Braintree, now Quincy, Massachusetts. His father, John Adams Sr., was a farmer, a Congregationalist deacon, and a town councilman, and was a direct descendant of Henry Adams, a Puritan who immigrated from England to the Massachusetts Bay Colony in 1638. His mother, Susanna Boylston Adams, was a descendant of the Boylstons of Brookline, a prominent family in colonial Massachusetts. His family was known to be the modest, and he was raised with very strong values. At the age of 16, he went to Harvard College in 1751. Next slide. His educational background. John Adams earned a scholarship to attend Harvard University. After graduating in 1755 at age 20, John Adams studied law in the office of James Putnam, a prominent lawyer, despite his father's wish for him to enter the ministry. In 1758, he earned a master's degree from Harvard and was admitted to the bar. During Adams' time in Worcester, he began keeping his famous journal. His first entry was on January 14, 1756. He was later admitted to the Bar Association in 1758. Next slide. His contributions. Adams quickly became identified with the Patriot because, initially as a result of his opposition to the Stamp Act of 1765, he wrote a response to the imposition of the act by British Parliament titled Essay on the Canon of Feudal Law, which was published as a series of 4 articles in the Boston Gazette. Adams argued the Stamp Act deprived American colonists of the basic rights to be taxed by consent and to be tried by a jury of peers. A couple months later, John Adams also publicly denounced the act as invalid in a speech delivered to Massachusetts governor and his council. One of the biggest events during that time was the American Revolution. During the 1760s, Adams began challenging Great Britain's authority in colonial America. After the Boston Massacre of March 1770, Adams wanted to assure that the soldiers who were being charged with firing into the crowd of people in Boston had received a fair trial. In 1774, John Adams attended the First Continental Congress in Philadelphia as a Massachusetts delegate. In 1775, as a delegate to the Second Continental Congress, Adams nominated George Washington to serve as the commander of the colonial forces in the American Revolutionary War. Lastly, in 1783, he helped negotiate the Treaty of Paris, which had officially ended hostilities between America and Britain. How was John Adams an American hero? John Adams remained in Europe after the war and served as the United States' first ambassador to Britain. He became a hero by sooner or later in 1776. John Adams was convinced that Thomas Jefferson to write the Declaration of Independence, and John Adams was one of the first to sign it. Most of the ideas in the Declaration of Independence were ideas which John Adams had repeatedly expressed. Adams was the first U.S. ambassador to the Netherlands and first U.S. minister to Britain. He came back to America and participated in the Constitutional Convention that nominated George Washington to serve as the United States' first president. John Adams had reached out to be the vice president, and he won. When Washington retired in 1796, John Adams ran for the president position and won over Thomas Jefferson, who eventually became vice president. In 1797, he sent a delegation to France to negotiate a treaty, but the French refused to meet with the delegates. John Adams refused to deal with... Sorry. John Adams refused to deal with the French on these terms. An undeclared war broke out between the U.S. and France in 1798. Next slide. How has their contributions impacted American history? Okay, so one of John Adams' diplomatic victories involved preventing the United States from going to war. He wanted to keep the U.S. out of the war. John Adams was the one who nominated George Washington to be commander-in-chief because of his leadership qualities, and he nominated George Washington to be head commander because he was a leader. On the other hand, most historians agree that John Adams was very smart with not expanding the naval war with France into an all-out probe. Another war sparked in controversy as soon after the War of Independence might have been fatal for the American Union. John Adams seen in this light in all things, no such thing as good war and bad peace, he used to say. Adams' legacy showed moral leadership, the rule of law, mostly compassion, and a cautious action, but all for securing the national interests and achieving an honorable peace. Here is a video that will show you an overview of John Adams in about 1 minute and 30 seconds. Enjoy.
John Adams was a grumpy, frumpy guy from Boston. He was a principled lawyer. He successfully defended the British soldiers involved in the Boston Massacre, and he was a relentless public servant. Adams was a leader in the Continental Congress, a diplomat to Europe, and the first vice president. In 1796, he won the world's toughest job, following George Washington as president. Adams had two wars to deal with. One was between America's new political parties. Federalists like Adams wanted a stronger national government, and Democratic Republicans wanted a smaller one. The fighting got nasty, but America got used to it. The parties have changed, but we still have a two-party system today. The second war was France versus England. Adams wanted to stay neutral, but each country's navy kept harassing U.S. merchants. He raised taxes to beef up naval defenses, and he signed the Alien and Sedition Acts, targeting foreigners and critics of the government. Adams kept the peace, but lost to Thomas Jefferson, a Democratic Republican, in 1800. Before he left, he made a huge impact by appointing Federalist John Marshall to lead the Supreme Court, and he lived until July 4th, 1826, America's 50th anniversary. Now that's patriotic.
Project presented on John Adams. Thank you.